Before jumping into the process of creating Ansible roles, let's discuss the layout and directory structure of Ansible roles. So as shown here, this is how a typical Ansible role directory structure looks. The main Ansible directory has some YAML file, which is the main Ansible playbook. And in this same file location, we have this roles folder. But this roles folder does not need to be local to the main playbook file. It can actually live on a remote file server. In such scenario, we can configure roles_path in the main Ansible configuration file to be read from a centralized location where all common Ansible roles may be stored. If you recall in the very beginning when we configured Ansible, we configured a specific folder for roles. So this way you can store all of your common roles in one central location and share them easily between multiple Ansible playbook projects. Okay, moving on. Within the roles folder, we have individual folders for specific roles. The name of the folder specifies the name of the role. So in our case, we may have a role for WordPress, another one for MySQL, and another one for Common. Inside the role folder, we will have a few different folders, and each one of these folders has a specific purpose. The naming conventions of these folders must be carefully observed because Ansible looks for these particular folder names while probing for roles. This structure is quite similar to an individual simple Ansible playbook. As the name suggests, we can add our tasks in the tasks folder, handlers in the handlers folder, and so on. Inside each of these folders, we typically store a main.yaml file. This is the file which gets executed from the subfolder first when Ansible plays a certain role. This main.yaml is the main entry point for each of these subfolders. Inside this main.yaml, we can import other modules or perform any type of suitable operations. Let's review these folders. The first one is called Tasks. This is where we store all the common tasks which are part of this particular role. If roles/x/tasks/main.yaml exists, tasks listed therein will be added to the play. Here, X is a placeholder for our Ansible role name. Furthermore, if these tasks use some common handlers, we can store them in the handlers folder inside yet another main.yaml, but that main.yaml will be specific to the handlers folder. And then we have the vars folder, which is useful for storing the variables. Then we have the defaults folder to specify common configuration items. And files folder can be used to store some required files for the role. Suppose we need some files that, as part of this role, need to be copied over to the remote server. Then we can put those files here in this files subfolder. Next, we have templates, as we have already learned about the Ginger templates in the previous module. So, all the files inside this folder will have a file extension of .j2, which defines it as a template file. The extension is not mandatory, but it is recommended for ease of identification of these template files. So this is what a role directory structure looks like. All Ansible roles have the same structure. It is imposed by Ansible. If a particular folder is not present, or a main.yaml is not present in a subfolder, Ansible just skips it. But for any role to be meaningful, we should have at least some code in the tasks main.yaml. To explore Ansible roles further, we are going to use some concrete examples. We will go ahead and use our WordPress example and actually install WordPress using roles. So as we mentioned earlier, we can group this installation into 3 or 4 roles. We can have one role for common packages, one for MySQL, one for Apache, and one for installing WordPress itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and see Ansible roles in action while installing WordPress.